occasion.
Oh no. Get to the airport, you're like, wait! Fortunately, our airport's not far away, so.
It's true.
All right, Dave, we're headed to YouTube. So let me move here. That's here. Highlights, spotlight everybody. There.
So Steve, just be aware that I'll say, let's go to the slides, because I have a couple that we'll do that with, okay?
But you're starting with the video, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And then as soon
Hello, Mr. Krause's class.
Hi, Miss Zimmerman. We actually have a mix. There are some coming in lunch. We have people from all 4 fifth grades in here today.
All right, I'm glad you're here. We had a little sound snafu, but we are back together. We're going to open the chat for everybody else, or open the link for everybody else in a couple of minutes.
Good deal. I saw the message about texting Dave, so I'm sure we'll have some good questions in here.
Our waiting room is filling up. This is exciting.
That's awesome. It's nice that it's our first one in 25-26 school year.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Y'all remember where we're going today?
Going Grand Teton.
Grand Teton. And you know what? So we watched CNN 10 this morning, and there was a whole thing about grizzlies in Alaska or Canada. And I'm like, there are grizzlies at Teton. They'd seen a few of them this week.
Nice.
For like a snow desk or something.
you're welcome to let them in.
All
right, I'm gonna
right,
go
here we
mute.
go. Hello, everyone. We are so glad you are here. We have such a great group joining us. Welcome to Crossing America Season 5. Can you believe it? We are at Grand Teton National Park today, and we're so glad you are here. Please drop in the chat where you're joining us from. I'm looking at the screen and recognizing some names. I already know we have North Carolina in the house. And oh, there's Ohio and Wyoming. I think there's an Alabama in the house. West Virginia. Hello, Miss Turner in Huntsville. We got Dallas, Texas, New Lenox, Illinois. We've got a great mix coming in from across the country. All right, let's not waste any more time. Let's get started.
Welcome to Season 5 of Crossing America, powered by Expeditions in Education in collaboration with the National Park Foundation. Over the past few years, more than 200,000 students have joined us as we've explored some of the most incredible national parks across the country. And today, we're coming to you from one of the wildest, most breathtaking of all, Grand Teton National Park. Are you ready to explore? We are! Let's join park staff Cadence and Zach as we discover the beauty, science, and stories of this amazing park right here on Crossing America.
Hey everyone, this is Dr. Drizzle, and welcome to Crossing America Season 5. Today, we are in Grand Teton National Park in the state of Wyoming, And what a beautiful background we have here. Before we get started, make sure you have your journals ready and your pens or pencils, because you're going to want to take a lot of notes today to remember this time together. We want to have a sense of place though and get connected to this place. So let's do that now.
Thank you, Dr. Drizzle. Grand Teton National Park is home to 24 associated federally recognized tribes. And I am a member of one of them, the Shoshone-Bannock tribe, located in Fort Hall, Idaho. My name is Katie Truchot, and I work with a partnership to Grand Teton National Park, American Conservation Experience, and I am the Tribal Community Engagement Fellow here. So I work a lot with these tribal nations that are associated.
And you're also here with something called the American Conservation Experience, or ACE. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, ACE is a nationwide organization, and they have a lot of different professions that people can get into to do some conservation all over the nation, and it's a great experience.
And we're glad you're here with us today. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
And on my other side here, I never know if it's the left or the right when I'm looking at the screen, but we have Zach. So Zach, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm an education associate here at Grand Teton National Park, and I work through the Grand Teton Association. They're the ones who do our gift and bookstore, and then they support some of our staff to be able to do education programs during the summer and winter. And I've been here for about 3 years, and I love Grand Teton National Park.
And I noticed that you're wearing something called naturalist. What is a naturalist?
Ooh, great question. So a naturalist is someone who has, who really takes on kind of understanding and kind of really learning about the natural, cultural, and historical resources of a place like Grand Teton National Park, and then really gets to the joy of being a naturalist is sharing that with the public and all audiences, whether it's education on a live stream or whether it's folks who are families who this is their first time here. So that's a lot of what we do.
It's a great thing, and we have the two best people in the house today to talk about what we're going to talk about today. So we have a big question. Let's go to the slide for just a moment. We want you to ponder this. How can humans design creative solutions that will help animals move safely through wild places like Grand Teton National Park? So that's a pretty exciting question, which means there's probably going to be some engineering involved in this. But we're going to talk about a word called migration. And can one of you tell me what that means to you, what migration means?
Sure. So migration is, we see a lot of our animals do migrations here, and that's where you'll see animals move, typically seasonally, from one place to another, whether they're following resources or, for example, here in Grand Teton National Park, our conditions get really harsh during the winter. We can get sometimes temperatures as low as -20 and even lower than that. And some animals can't deal with that. And so they're not well adapted to those environments, so they have to move somewhere else to go find safety and shelter.
And we know that sometimes humans make that harder, right? They build fences or they build houses, and it sort of disrupts that. So we're going to sort of understand this migration journey through Grand Teton, and our goal is to see if our students can take what we learned today and apply that to their own community. So let's go ahead and start talking about this migration and how we track, or how scientists and rangers and park staff track those animals. Now, I think we're going to talk a little bit about GPS. So can we look at that?
Yes, correct. Zach is going to hold up a GPS collar, and these collars are the best way to just kind of track the routes that these animals are taking. We put them on our mule deer, our pronghorn, and we can collect the data from this, and this will tell us exactly where they are going and when. And there's a few of each kind of herd that gets these. So we have a pretty great selective group to collect this data from. Yeah, if you want to explain.
Sure. So the cool thing about these, you can notice how if I had this hanging around my neck, it'd probably be pretty heavy. However, the cool thing about this is as the animal grows, this has the potential, these are meant to be the least impacting to the animals as possible. So we want to collect our data, but we also don't want to impact the animal's natural behavior. So this, if the animal gets too big, it will actually break off. And over a course of a couple of years, these will naturally, over time, essentially wear out and the collar will fall off. And then the scientists can actually go pick them up and then reuse them, which is pretty awesome.
I love that. And we are very aware of this idea of how safe we're using these. We're being very kind to the animals. We're doing it to better their herds, to better their way of life. So I know that when the scientists get together, they have a process that they go to that is very safe for these animals. Now, they track things like pronghorns, right? How far would these pronghorns go?
Pronghorn typically go about 150 miles, in some cases 170, 175 miles to migrate. So yeah, they travel quite long distances.
Now, I noticed that inside your visitor center, you have some displays up, and it notices that we follow mule deer 1, 2, and 3, and pronghorn 1, 2, and 3. So not every animal gets this collar. And if we're trying to think about what this GPS does, once they put it on, it sends a signal out, and a satellite tracks that. So just like if you're in your car and you have GPS on and you see your little car moving, scientists can tell where those mule deer or those pronghorn or those elk are moving, which is important because we need to see where they're moving so we can decide if we are providing the best place for them. Let's talk a little bit about those animals. I know that you guys have brought some skulls and some antlers. So who wants to start and tell us a little bit about the animals?
I can start. I am going to hold up a mold of a pronghorn. And as you can see, for starters, their eyes are on the side of the skull. So eyes on the side like to hide. Eyes in the front like to hunt. So these are not predatory animals like the wolves or our other kinds of dogs like coyotes and foxes. They have evolved to kind of just be always on the watch. And they have these sheaths, their horns right here. And I'll take them off, but they grow from, what is it, Zach? Their fur? Is that how their antlers or their horns grow?
I believe so. So it's a natural growth. It's different. So horns are a little different than our antlers, where antlers grow almost like a mutation, and they grow out and then they fall off every season. These will actually stick with the pronghorn for its entire life.
Okay.
Yes, correct. Yeah. Our pronghorn are also really fascinating because they can go up to, what did you say this morning? 60 miles?
60 miles an
hour.
hour.
They
That's
are
faster
super
than
fast.
a lot of our roads around here, actually.
Yes, exactly. They have evolved with a prehistoric animal, which was like our North America version of the cheetah. And so they had to run these super fast distances. But now they're number one, what would you say?
Yeah, their number one challenge that they face, as we're talking about challenges today, is actually vehicle accidents, because ultimately they go so fast that it's hard to gauge distance. If there's one way out in the field, they can actually get to and across that road, and sometimes it's a little hard for us to be able to gauge that time. So one of their challenges is a lot of those roads that we're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, awesome.
Can you show us another one?
Sure. So I'll show you a couple of things. This is a mule deer antler. So you notice how it's got this kind of big fork, and Ranger Katie was actually telling me that if this was a white-tailed deer, it would actually, the main prong would be a little bit different. It'd actually be hooked a little further, kind of almost forward, where these are going to be kind of pointed up and back. And then this is actually winter mule deer fur, so give that a feel.
That was weird because this
Very
was actually
soft, but it also has, if you brush it the other way, it has some texture to it.
Yeah, so you can notice there's kind of this textured section here. These are kind of like guard hairs, so they're almost like my rain jacket. And then if I was here in winter, I would want a rain jacket and a puffy. And this is kind of like their puffy. This is their version of a puffy, giving them an extra insulation.
Like the long johns.
Exactly.
Which Dr. Drizzle is wearing today because it is pretty cold out here.
Yeah.
Well, so we have these animals. And we touched on something. These pronghorns go pretty fast, and their predators are the cars, right, that are going to hit them. So I want to talk a little bit about what we're doing here at Grand Teton to protect some of these animals. So if we'll go to the slides for a moment, we're going to talk about two different definitions. So kids, if you have your pencils or pens out, let's start getting these pieces. First of all, we're going to talk about a wildlife corridor. And basically that is a natural path that animals take, right? It was not man-made, but it is watched very carefully by humans to make sure that nothing is put in the way. So as staff here, you're making sure that if you're following GPS and following these pronghorn and you notice that someone's home or someone's area is trying to put up a fence, you're probably going to discourage that because this is a natural corridor. Then the next word is wildlife crossings. Now, it's the same thing. It's a path that animals can safely travel on, but this is human-made. And here in Grand Teton, we have a couple of these. The first one we have is something called an underpass.
Exactly.
And then we have a overpass. Zach, can you talk through this place called Trappers Point and what they've done here to save the animals?
Sure. So Trappers Point is a great example of where we've identified the wildlife corridor based on that GPS data. And we've said, hey, there's a problem. These animals are going over a major highway and having to contend with lots of vehicle traffic, potential fences. So what Trappers Point is there's an underpass and an overpass.
Well, let's watch a
Sure.
video while
Yeah.
you're talking. Let's put this up here right now so that we can actually see this.
Yeah, so what we're looking at is we're actually looking at an underpass in action. So there's a mule deer running towards the camera, and this is an area where they were able to kind of naturally build or kind of use the landscape to their advantage to just build a bridge over and allow the animals to pass underneath. And then what you're seeing on the screen now is an overpass where they've actually essentially developed a land bridge over the highway, and they've tried to mimic, in both of these cases, the natural habitat so that those animals feel comfortable crossing the overpass or the underpass, kind of like what you're seeing right now from the live stream at Trappers Point. So this is actually a recording from the overpass at Trappers Point, which is pretty exciting.
It is exciting. And this was not just done by Grand Teton National Park. Wyoming cares deeply for these animals. And if I read that this started in 2012 and 60,000 animals have had safe passage, which means 60,000 animals probably were saved. Because before this was built, there were a lot of accidents, a lot of animals that were unfortunately killed here. So this was done with the Wyoming DOT and conservation groups. I have a question for you, and it may be a silly one, but
Sure.
how do they decide if they're going to go under the underpass or over the overpass?
Oh, it's a great question. And the cool thing about having both an underpass and an overpass is different animals use different things.
Okay.
So some animals with the underpass are going to be a lot more comfortable going under that space, where with an overpass, some of our larger, so say the pronghorn or maybe the mule deer are going to feel more comfortable because they're a lot more comfortable in open spaces where they have a wide field of view. So it depends on the natural environment those animals are comfortable with. But like a couple other examples that are cool from those underpasses, we've seen bear go under them. We've seen some of our different canids, so some of our different dog species like coyotes and foxes. So it's not just our pronghorn and our elk and our mule deer that are really benefiting. It's a lot of other animals too.
Well, I'm wondering, do they have a training session to bring all of them together to say, okay, guys, now you're going to go this way? I know the answer to that is no, but you talked a little bit about fencing and areas that get narrower so that they're sort of herded into a place naturally.
Yeah, so especially around these big highways, one of the things they talk about is having guard fencing. And guard fencing is essentially where the fences kind of encourage the animals to go towards that specific overpass or underpass, and it discourages them from going across the highway because those animals may have had a way of getting across the highway previously, or that might have been a learned behavior. But in this case, we want them to go over the overpass, or we want them to take the route that we've kind of designated, and so we kind of encourage them with those guard fences.
Now, one of my favorite animals here is the moose. But as of right now, the moose aren't moving, right? They're sort of staying here. Why do they stay here during this harsh winter?
Great question. So they typically stay in this area of the Greater Yellowstone Ecosystem, or the GYE, just because they have been able to adapt to the changing climates. They grow thicker fur, they shed their heavy antlers, and they can actually live off of the twigs and the branches of the bushes and trees. So they like to hang out in this area. They don't have to move like the other animals who can't quite get to their sustenance or food under the snow.
Well, that leads me to another question. What happens to the animals that can't reach their winter range, that can't get to the place that they need to be? You know, what happens to them? Who wants?
Yeah. So if they have a hard time getting there, they have a hard time just surviving. They are not well equipped to adapt to those harsh weather environments like winter. And winter in Grand Teton, it lasts like 6 to 8 months. Like most of the year, we are in snow. So if they can't get there, then they're just out of luck. It's a really harsh situation.
So that's why these corridors, these crossings are so important. You mentioned something that I want Zach to talk about. You mentioned something called a GYE. I have a map on the screen that we can put up. What is this GYE?
So it's a great question, and I like to think of it as Grand Teton is a chapter in a bigger book. And so Grand Teton itself is 310,000 acres. However, we are part of what's called the Greater Yellowstone Ecosystem, which is the largest temperate ecosystem in the United States, largest intact temperate ecosystem in the United States. And this is a big reason why we have such successful migratory populations, because we have this huge kind of expanse that is 22 million acres in total, but it includes us, Grand Teton National Park. It includes Yellowstone National Park. We're kind of like the center stones of that piece. And then we're surrounded by national forests, national wildlife refuges that all help protect a lot of these migratory corridors and keep those animals safe. Because we've noticed that, especially in this park, people love the wildlife.
They do. And part of your job, or the majority of your job, is to educate students about what's happening here. But I'm sure that we have other people here that work towards this purpose. Researchers, biologists. Have you met any of the people that actually work to monitor these wildlife corridors and crossings?
Yeah, we work in the same building as them. So it just whether we're walking around in the hallway or there's like a company event or something, or park, I should say, event. We intervene with these other researchers in the park Yeah, and they're great, and they have an awesome job. They go into the mountains. They're working with these animals and serving and protecting, which is our park mission.
Absolutely. I want to move a little bit, still talking about migration, but sort of talk about the history of migration and how it lets us hear the voices from the land, the people that were here before us and are still here today. So my question for you is, the animals of Grand Teton have followed these migratory paths for thousands of years, right? And indigenous people understood these paths and also felt that they were sacred. Talk a little bit about what the migration or the migratory paths mean to the indigenous people.
Yeah, so we kind of view, especially this area of the GYE, the Greater Yellowstone Ecosystem, as kind of like our grocery store. And so whether it's water or vegetation and like berries or all those other medicines, animals play a big part in that as well. Not only just to lead us to those other resources because they're looking for the same stuff we are, but they also are a source of sustenance or help us survive the changing climates and things. So yeah, for thousands of years, we followed these migratory animals. We used their same game trails or their paths through the wildlife corridor, and yeah, they're seen as like these very sacred beings. And a lot of tribes, I can't speak for the tribes, but a lot of tribes often believe that they are like our ancestors. And so we have a very spiritual connection with these animals and what they mean, not just to us, but to the land and to Mother Nature. And yeah.
So a deep connection and important. Yes. I read something, and I'm going to actually read the quote because I want to make sure I get it right. Today, scientists and conservationists are working together to protect these wildlife corridors, blending the indigenous knowledge, the indigenous science with modern science. And I think that is so important because this land was managed by the indigenous peoples long before someone like me got here, and they did it well, and we learned from that. So what can we learn from this whole idea of migration? How does it help us learn from nature, these patterns of migration?
Ooh, it's a great question, and I might I'll make a comment or two, and then I might toss it over to Katie. But I think one of the great things that we can learn from migrations and specifically migratory corridors is one, where it's safe to travel, and also we can understand change. So one of the coolest things that I've noticed with being here for a couple of years is that I always get so excited when the pronghorn show up. When I see the elk moving north, it's like, oh my God, spring is coming. So a lot of the times we have these kind of indicators of change based on the migratory patterns of these different animals, which is it's pretty cool, but it's also a lot of just observation of being here. Like you don't need a science degree per se to understand that. It's just observation of being here for multiple years.
Anything to add to that, Katie?
Yeah, from observing how these animals adapt to change, it's just really shows resilience. And I really truly admire, like we mentioned with the antelope traveling like 150 to 170 miles. Like that's a big migration. Like that's a lot of miles. And so it's really fascinating, and I truly kind of grow an appreciation and kind of like self-reflect, like I could do hard things too.
Absolutely. I was just going to say, we learn from nature, we learn from these animals to be resilient. I want to share that, I want to move into our challenge if we can. Does that sound okay to you?
Sure.
So our challenge is going to be for you guys to design a wildlife crossing. Now remember, our definitions: corridor is natural, it's already there. Crossings is still a path, but we build it. Now you may think, oh, so we just have them at Grand Teton. I am going to blow your mind in just a moment because I'm going to show you a couple photos of wildlife crossings not just in the US, but around the world. So this is one of the most famous ones in the US. This is Los Angeles, and this was built for a certain animal to cross this massive highway here. So from what I read, this is the largest crossing in the US, which is kind of exciting. Now, notice that the crossing itself is natural. So there is grass and rock. I don't imagine that many animals would want to walk across marble or something that's man-made, right? They want to sort of feel like they're in their area. Now that's cool, and that makes sense to us. Take a look at this. This is in Australia. This is on Christmas Island in Australia. And every Christmas, these red crabs have to get from inland to the ocean so that they can mate. And these people that love these crabs have built this bridge for them to crawl up. Now imagine yourself being there with all of these crabs coming over the bridge. It could be a little scary, but probably pretty fascinating. In fact, there are some documentaries on this where people gather just to watch this migratory pattern of these red crabs. But hold on, there's more. This is turtles. And these are turtle crossings in Japan. And if you're thinking, wait a minute, are those railroad tracks? You're exactly right. So they have built this culvert, if you will, for turtles to cross. And I have one more. This is also in Australia, and we're protecting these beautiful birds because they have built a rope bridge across that. Now, Zach, you told me another fun one. Can you share the penguin story?
Sure. So one of the ones when I was first learning about wildlife corridors and wildlife crossings, one of the examples that we would talk about at one of my previous places of work is the little blue penguins in New Zealand. And similar to the culvert for the turtles, they would, under a highway, these little blue penguins are only about this big. They're very cute and they're very small. But ultimately, they can get under like a pipe only about maybe 5 to 6 inches wide. And so they just created this kind of this little culvert under the road so the penguins can get to the ocean and back.
I love it. Humans are trying to safely help animals navigate the world around them. They are being good humans to our good animals. So your challenge is to build a crossing that will allow an animal to cross. You must use 2 natural materials. So think about grass or plants or rocks or soil. And we want you to build this maybe out of recyclable materials because we're trying to be kind to the environment. But if you have Legos or Connects or Lincoln Logs or something like that laying around, I'm going to put a teacher on the spot here. If they can't answer this, if they can't talk to Ms. Zimmerman or Mr. Krause, that's okay. But I know that Melissa Turner, who is a librarian in Huntsville, Alabama, has her students already working on this challenge. So Ms. Turner, if you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing in the classroom, that would be awesome. I'll give you just a moment to collect your thoughts, and all you'll need to do, Ms. Zimmerman can help you, just unmute your mic and tell us about your project in your school. So make sure you're unmuted. All right, so it's not coming up, but why don't you drop in the chat and Ms. Zimmerman can share that. I'm sorry, my iPad is dying on me right now, so I'm going to have to change over to some actual paper. Here we go. Thank you very much. So again, share your challenge with us. I know that Zach and Katie would be glad to take those. And Ms. Turner, I heard you are now online, so tell us a little bit about the projects that are happening at your school. Is your microphone working? Still muted. All right, that's okay. We're going to let you put it into the chat window, and we're calling this challenge again the Build a Wildlife Challenge. Now, we're going to try to get some questions now because I know that kids are probably interested in telling us what they're doing or having questions. So Ms. Zimmerman and Mr. Kraus, thank you so much for being our moderators today. Can you share some questions with us? Have we lost our moderators?
Yes. No. We're here. We're here. I was looking, and Miss Turner is coming back in, so she might be able in just a moment. One of the questions was how
We
many.
got it. We got it.
Coming in, we have a question about what is
Tiffany.
the largest ecosystem?
We got it. Keep going,
What?
Mr. Kraus.
How many species of animals live in Grand Teton?
Oh my gosh, great question.
Great question.
I hope we stumped the
Yeah.
ranger, but let's see. How many species?
Good question. So I think it depends on how broad we want to go. Because if we include, I believe it's like if we include mammals, if we include birds, if we include bugs, there's over, from what we understand, there's over 10,000 species of insects here. So like, just to kind of give you a little baseline, like there's that. I believe there's at least 3,000 species of birds that call this place home. And that could be home, speaking of migrations, that could be home for a couple months, that could be home for a couple of weeks. We are often a stopover on the way into kind of the Arctic and subarctic, or we can be a summer range for a lot of birds, and there's even a couple species that live here year round. So as far as an exact number, congratulations, you stumped the ranger. But just to give you kind of a vast understanding of like just how many species call this place home or use this place at some point during their life cycle.
So a lot of people, very diverse landscape here with lots of animals. Great question. Do we have another one?
Yes, that is impressive numbers. Thank you.
It
Another
is.
question is the red fox. Does the red fox change color during the winter?
So do we have red fox here?
We do, yes. And I don't recall them changing color. The only animal that I can think of that changes color in the wintertime is actually our long-tailed weasel. And they are like a brown color in the summertime, and then they turn white in the wintertime. They blend in the snow. The only thing that you could really like see is their little black tail. That's the only piece of them that never changes. The very tip of their tail just always stays black.
Okay, so a long-tailed weasel, which is a pretty different animal than we've talked about at some of our other parks. Great question.
So
Keep 'em
with all
coming.
those
Can you hear me
species
now?
that you talked about, one last question referring to them. Where do they go in the winter when it gets so cold and so snowy?
Oh,
Ooh, good question. The weasel, speaking of that animal, they actually live in the subnevian layer of the snow, which is a big word, but I'll tell you what it means. Subnevian just means that it's at the bottom base of the snow. So they are practically living on the soil still. But that subnevian layer of the snow stays at a regular temperature of 32 degrees Fahrenheit year round. So it's insulated. Just like thinking of like igloos and stuff. They stay warm and they can survive easy down there. And the other animals, the moose like to hang out. They got super long legs, and so they can just walk all over the snow. Our buffalo go to like warmer areas. They can use their big heads like snow plows to get down to the base of the snow. But
Yeah, I think to Ranger Katie's point, it really depends on the animal you're talking about. So some of our animals do stick around during the winter. And then you have, and it's kind of cool to see, especially when this whole place, because you can see the sagebrush behind us, all of that will get covered in snow. And that sagebrush acts like a structure to essentially, it's like the framework for a house. So all of these animals like to essentially call the subnevian layer home because there's this structure that kind of holds up the snow and insulates their natural environment. But then we also have animals who hibernate. A good example of that, here I'll grab I have a bear pelt right here from one of our black bears. And you might notice it's not a very black colored black bear. This is a cinnamon black bear. And Ranger Katie also has a grizzly bear. So these are two of our prime examples of hibernators. So they will typically, this is right around the time that they're starting to bed down and go into their dens. And once we start getting some heavy snow, they will start their hibernation process, and they won't come out until like April or May. And then of course, we were also talking about migrators, and migrators, of course, they're not adapted to winter here, so they go elsewhere.
So I want to talk about this cinnamon bear for just a moment, because this is still a black bear. I know on the East Coast, Gatlinburg, Smoky Mountains National Park, Shenandoah, our black bears are black, but there are multiple colors here, right? Some people might mistake this for a grizzly.
Yeah.
And what would be the distinction that would help us know this would not be a grizzly?
Oh, great question. So this is, so here, we're gonna go a little side by side, and you can see, for example, the fur is a little bit different. You can see the black bear fur kind of sits a little flatter and is a little bit longer. However, a couple of the identifying features we're not going to be able to see from the pelts.
Right.
If you're looking at a picture of a black bear and a grizzly bear side by side, one of the easiest ways is their ears and the profile of their face. So if you look at a black bear, they've got these kind of big pointy ears, versus a grizzly bear. In comparison to their head, they're gonna have these like little teddy bear ears. They're gonna look like a little round ear. And then grizzly bears have more of a dished profile. So it's, if you drew a line from the crown of their head to their top of their snout, it'd be like a little swoop. Versus with a black bear, it's more of a straight line. So almost similar to what we see with some of our dog species, some of our, like our wolves and our coyotes. They have more of a straight line from the top of the crown of their head to the tip of their nose.
And also grizzlies do have that hump, right? So that you can recognize. So both of these are very soft. Now, as always, we're going to promote safety here. So the rule of thumb is that if you put your thumb up, and if the animal completely hides behind it, you're at a good distance and do not get any closer. Both of these animals are wild. It is their home before it's yours. So you want to make sure that you are being safe and being good humans to these bears, because if they do get riled up, they're coming after you for food, right? You're messing. One of the best ways to travel when you're traveling with your adult friends and you are doing is to make noise. They have things called bear bells to keep, because bears, if they're startled, they're going to leave you. They don't want to naturally hang out with you. So great question. Let's do another one.
Actually, Miss Dr. Drizzle, we have Miss Turner's class back with us, and they are ready to share if you are ready to hear their awesomeness.
We are ready. Be loud and proud.
Hey there. We are so excited to see you. Our students are using journals, and they are collecting all their data and their metadata to design their own safe passing for creatures. And I think I'm going to need a safe no, y'all got to sit down. So our students have also been using coding mice, and while they design a path for their coding mice, they also add a bridge over for those creatures to safely pass.
I love that. That coding piece reminds me a little bit of GPS. And Ms. Turner, how many students are working on these projects?
Well, currently 20 in the LMC, but we have about 300 students that are working on that right now.
That is awesome. I know that Katie and Zach are excited to see your prototypes and to share those with their community of scientists and learners and researchers here. So Ms. Turner, thank you so much. And I'm going to let you know that we're going to be sending you some Junior Explorer badges that you can give to students who are willing to share their ideas with people. So make sure that you give your address to Ms. Zimmerman so we can send you those Junior Explorer badges. But students, don't worry, if you've not created yours yet, you now have time so that you can be part of this story here, this good stewardship story, if you will. Ms. Zimmerman and Mr. Kraus, do we have any more questions?
We do.
Yeah, going back to.
Go ahead,
Go
Mr.
ahead,
Kraus.
Ms. So, wondering about the species of animals there again, which one is the most populated that you see, and which one is the least? Is there one that would maybe find itself on an endangered list?
So let's go with most populated first, what we would see the most. Zach?
Oh man, what we would see the most is, it depends. If we go small, then we could talk about bugs all day. But I would say probably of the species we see here, probably our elk is one of the most populated. They often, during the winter, they go down into the lower end of the Jackson Hole Valley. And during the summer, we see them anywhere from right out here all the way up into some of our elk migrate all the way up into Yellowstone. So the Jackson Hole herd is about roughly between 10 and 11,000, I believe.
Wow.
And it's not the only herd either, because there's quite a few different refuges. So Cadence, you want to share?
Yeah, we're kind of surrounded by three big ones. There's one in Dubois, which is about 2 hours north of here, and then from where we're recording. And then there's one in the town of Jackson, and then there's one in just south in Hobeck Canyon, which is another like major highway to get out. As far as our like rarest and least likely to see species in the park, that would probably be our wolverine. They are very elusive creatures. And I know some rangers who have looked for, like trying to sight a wolverine their entire career and have had no luck. So yeah, those ones are the most that you just don't really see. Yeah.
So I know that they are on a threatened list, which is before endangered, right? In the national parks in general, looking at these wolverines and trying to find these wolverines that have sort of been taken care of by predators and humans with hunting. So great two questions. So elk, a lot, wolverines, elusive.
All right, we have another question because we know we care about our animals on land, but we also care about animals in the water. So this question is, are there marine animal corridors that you know of?
So before we answer that one, the background of this young man is actually marine biology. So he is so excited to share. And he was actually sharing the other day about the Snake River being a possible corridor for mammals. But what about anything that's under the water?
Sure. So, so as Dr. Drizzle mentioned, my background's in marine science. So being in a landlocked state's a little funny, but I came here for more than just the water itself. We are fortunate to we essentially have an artery by the Snake River. The Snake River, it can be kind of a wildlife corridor itself where animals can kind of follow the shorelines. But in addition to that, we also have a couple of species of native cutthroat trout. We have the Snake River fine spotted cutthroat trout, as well as sometimes we'll see the Yellowstone cutthroat trout as well. Both of those call the Snake River home. And as far as a corridor, yes, the Snake River would be kind of a natural corridor for those species. But then it's interesting because we talk about mammals needing these overpasses and underpasses. Well, that's kind of like if you have a dam in the middle of a river. Well, what's that fish going to do? We have to kind of get creative with creating either fish ladders or creating these ways. I know there's one where there's literally a gate, and the fish have to come up to the gate, and there's volunteers who watch the gate, and they actually open the gate for the fish to be able to come through. So it allows those fish to still use that natural corridor, and it reduces our impact on their space.
Yeah, and so that's really interesting. Teachers, I encourage you to look for those Ring doorbells for the fish. There is several in other countries where they are monitored, and kids can watch those through live cams. So the natural corridor would be the river, Snake River, and then the crossing, which is man-made, would be those fish ladders. If you've joined us before on our Crossing America live streams, you've noticed that in Olympic National Park, the Lower Sklallam Dam was built to dam up for energy. And then our Jamestown Sklallam tribe, the indigenous peoples, they are really pushed for those dams to be alleviated so that their salmon could swim back upstream and spawn. So sometimes we as humans build barriers to these natural corridors, and that's what we're trying to get away from. We want to be good humans to make sure these animals can continue these pathways that they've been on for time immemorial, right? Any more questions?
We got a couple of more. Emerson from Alabama would like to know, how old do pronghorns live, and at what age are they considered to be an adult?
How long do they live? And okay, pronghorns. Do we have a pronghorn specialist here?
This one, I don't know it for certain, but I think that they live, I honestly don't know. I know they are considered full grown after about 2 years.
Okay, so we know that for sure.
For sure. But as far as like when they're considered the old wise man, I'm not 100% certain on that one.
Well, I think that this could be a fun Stump the Ranger project. So we're going to ask Emerson or anyone else if they want to find the answer to this and video themselves and share that answer. We will give them a copy of our book, Lila and Toby, The Moose Mystery in Grand Teton. So please, whoever wants to get this done and give it to your teachers and send it to us. We'll take the first 5 students who can answer that question on film because our rangers want to know. Good job, Emerson.
All right. How about this one? Do animals ever merge paths when they're crossing the corridors?
Ooh, like creating a path is kind of how I interpreted that.
So do they cross, like different animals, maybe different species, do they ever intersect at a meetup, if you will?
Yeah, I would definitely say that they definitely do. They share these kind of like their own version of a highway with multiple species. In fact, you can see like mule deer hanging out with the elk, or you can, these different species, they really intervene. Same with moose and those kind of ungulate species, which is a big word.
Which means?
Ungulates are hooved animals. So that includes our elk, our moose, our deer, our sheep, our bighorn sheep, mountain goats, all of those hooved animals are ungulate.
Ungulate. So we're going to put that up on the screen for you, and I'm going to try to spell it. Ungulate.
Yes.
Ungulates.
Nice.
Great word to put into your journal. And use that at home tonight with your family. Tell them that you learned about ungulates today and see if they know what that means.
Yeah. And we can use that data too. So when we're looking at crossover of these different species, we can use that spatial data that our researching rangers use to understand, like, okay, all of these animals are going across this one space. Cool. This would be a good space for a natural crossing or an underpass or an overpass. So a lot of the times when we can help multiple species at once, that's where we'll try and create those bridges to essentially allow for that corridor to still be kind of intact.
And I heard you talk earlier that in Jackson Hole there are some conservationists that have come together, and their plans are to build some more of these crossings, underpasses, and overpasses.
Yeah, so there's actually quite a few more proposed projects. Trappers Point was one of them. So we have Trappers Point, which has an underpass and an overpass. They're also talking about possibly putting some on Highway 89, which runs the length of Grand Teton National Park, as well as I believe over in DuBois, where they've seen a lot of that data, kind of where there's a specific crossing. And then also just on the pass up here, just on Teton Pass itself, because that's a huge kind of commuter corridor for a lot of folks going from the Idaho side of the Teton Range to Jackson to work. And so that is a huge area where we see a lot of vehicle traffic and a lot of wildlife interaction. And so they're looking at putting an overpass there as well as a couple underpasses to support these animals.
Great. And I think we have time for about one more question.
All right, so how tall is the mountain there?
Ooh,
I was hoping that
great
you would do
question.
this. So we
Yes.
wanted to have a moment to share our information about how tall these mountains are. So I think we're going to be able to put up some information over the graphic or over these mountains. So let's talk about this, Zach. These beautiful mountains, we've kind of left them out of this live stream because we've talked about these in our other Crossing America videos with Ranger Megan and Ranger Julie. So what is this thing behind us that we are pointing out right now?
Sure. This is our wonderful namesake of Grand Teton National Park. What you are looking at right now is the Grand Teton, and it's 13,775 feet tall. And it's the highest point in the Teton Range, which is about roughly 45 miles long. And you can notice that our mountains get very steep very quick. So it's kind of fun to think about. We're here down in the Sage Flats, but you'll notice that the environment changes only a couple miles that way. So It makes for a very dynamic environment, especially for our wildlife.
And we know that these were created by glaciers, right? One point of information that you can play trivia with, this is not Grand Tetons National Park. It is Grand Teton. Just like Rocky Mountain National Park is not Rocky Mountains National Park. I will tell you one more fun fact. These mountain peaks behind us are pretty young as far as geologists goes. They're only about 10 million years old, which sounds old, but in the world of rock. So what we heard yesterday is that these are the toddlers and Rocky Mountain are the teenagers and the Appalachians are the wise old people. So if you were going to sort of progress those mountains into their age. I had one more question that I wanted to ask, if that's okay. So let me open up my flying papers right here. Well, we're going to get to it in just a minute, I promise.
That's okay.
What can humans do to make a difference in these places? I know that we already have some things in place with these overpasses, with things like speed limits and lights at night, but we'll start with you, Zach. What is one thing humans can do to make a difference?
Sure. One thing that humans can do is we have a lot of people who love to visit the national parks. And oftentimes when people visit the national parks, their goal is to see the wildlife, to experience this place. And so one of the things I always encourage is folks to leave no trace. So essentially when you come here, pretty much treat it like you were visiting this home, because this is the animal's home. And so oftentimes when you are out in these places, you are wandering through someone's backyard. You may be seeing a moose or you may not be seeing a moose, but your presence is still felt there. So bring a camera, take a lot of cool pictures, make sure you're at a respectable distance, and try to leave as little of a footprint as possible. So use already impacted spaces if you're out camping. Make sure to clean up all your trash. One of the big things with our bears here is we don't want them getting into human food. So we try to reduce as much of our impact as possible.
I love that. And anything from you, Katie?
Yeah, just to kind of backpack off of Zach's points. Yeah, leave things better than you found them. If you pack any trash in, take it back out with you. If you see any on the trail that someone may have dropped on accident or on purpose, pick it up, take it with you. Leave it better than you found it. Because it's also like, we get, what is it, over 3 to 4 million visitors a year, which is a lot. So there's a lot of traffic coming into the park to see this wonderful place. It's very special. So let's leave it as preserved and beautiful as we can for those people who are coming after.
So I want to leave us with a little movement, if you will. So if everybody will stand up for me, we're going to do a little migration dance that I just made up 2 seconds ago. So we're going to do it a little bit about like the electric slide. So we're going to migrate to the right, to the right, to the right, to the right, to the left, to the left, to the left, to the left. Now underpass, underpass, now overpass. Over, one more time, to the right, to the right, to the right, to the right, to the left, to the left, to the left, to the left. Now underpass, underpass, and overpass, overpass. So on behalf of our amazing moderators, Ms. Zimmerman and Mr. Kraus, to our whole school that visited, Ms. Turner's school that is building all of these amazing crossings, to every student who showed up today, to every teacher who works tirelessly to make sure that things are going well and taking care of their kids, to our own site teacher who's coming up right now, Miss Bell, who was behind the scenes. She's waving at all of her kids in Wheatland, Wyoming. To our amazing behind the scenes tech people, Dave and Steve, to Katie and Zach. And on behalf of Dr. Drizzle and the National Park Foundation and Expeditions in Education, we want to say migrate safely and be good humans. We will see you next time on Crossing America, Season 5. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.